I'm the Guardian. I negotiate with those trapped between worlds. I maintain the balance.
Before we start, if you're into real stories from tribal law enforcement that the mainstream media never covers, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a like if you want more content like this, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there? I'm curious about my audience. All right, what I'm about to share happened on the Navajo Nation Reservation in Arizona, and it's the reason our department has protocols that officially don't exist. Let's get into it. My name is Officer David Begay, and I've been with the Navajo Nation Police Department for 11 years. Our jurisdiction covers 27,000 square miles across Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, bigger than 10 U.S. states. Most people don't realize how vast the reservation is, how isolated some areas are, how many places exist where the old ways still hold power over the land. And then there's the Devil's Zone. That's not its official name. On our maps, it's listed as Restricted Area 7C with no further explanation, no coordinates in the database, no patrol routes assigned, just a blank space on the map with a red boundary and a single notation. No entry without authorization from Tribal Council. In 11 years, I'd never been authorized. Never even asked. Because every officer knew the unspoken rule. You don't go into the Devil's Zone. You don't ask questions about the Devil's Zone. And you definitely don't patrol there after dark. Until 3 weeks ago, it started with a missing person report. Olivia So, 23 years old, university student home for summer break. Last seen hiking near Coyote Wash, which runs along the eastern edge of, you guessed it, the Devil's Zone. I took the call because I was the closest unit. Her mother was frantic on the phone. She said she was going to photograph the sunset at Coyote Wash. That was 6 hours ago. Her truck is still there, but no sign of her. Officer, you have to find her. The sun is going down. The way she said that last part, the urgency, the fear, it wasn't just about darkness making the search harder. It was something else. I arrived at Coyote Wash at 6:47 p.m., 43 minutes until full sunset. Olivia's truck was right where her mother said it would be, parked at the trailhead. Doors unlocked, keys in the ignition, phone on the dashboard showing 47 missed calls. No one leaves their phone behind, especially not someone from the younger generation. I radioed dispatch. This is Unit 12. I'm at Coyote Wash. Vehicle located but subject still missing. Requesting backup and search team. Static, then Unit 12, be advised. Coyote Wash borders Restricted Area 7C. Search operations in that area require authorization. A girl is missing. I don't need authorization to search for a missing person. More static. Then a different voice. Sergeant Nez, my supervisor. Begay, stand down. Do not cross into 7C. We're sending a specialized team. ETA 30 minutes. 30 minutes? It'll be full dark by then. That's the point. Stand down. That's an order. I should have listened. Should have stayed by the truck and waited for the specialized team I'd never heard of before. But Olivia's mother's words kept echoing. The sun is going down. Like sunset was a deadline. Like something changed when darkness fell. I grabbed my flashlight, my radio, and my service weapon. Followed the trail from the parking area toward Coyote Wash. The path was well worn initially. This was a popular hiking spot during daylight hours. But the further I went, the less defined it became. And then I saw the markers. Not official trail markers. These were different. Small cairns, stacks of rocks, placed at regular intervals. But the rocks were arranged wrong. Upside down somehow, though rocks shouldn't have an upside down. And each stack had a piece of turquoise placed on top, the traditional Navajo color of protection. Protection from what? I was about a quarter-mile from the truck when I found her camera, a nice digital SLR, expensive, lying in the middle of the trail, lens cap still on. No damage, no signs of being dropped, just placed there, like someone had set it down carefully and walked away. I checked the photos. The last few were of the sunset. Beautiful shots of red rock formations and purple sky. Then several photos of the cairns with turquoise stones. Then a final photo that made my blood run cold. A sign I hadn't seen yet. Weathered wood, hand-painted letters in both English and Navajo. The English Siasinellar side read, Devil's Zone, Boundary. No entry after sunset. Violators will not be warned. The Navajo text said something different, older words. Words my grandmother would have understood, but that I'd never learned properly. Something about the place where things return, and the hour of thin spaces. I looked up from the camera. 20 yards ahead, I could see the sign from the photo. And beyond it, the landscape changed. The red rocks became darker. The scattered vegetation looked wrong, plants I didn't recognize, or familiar plants growing in impossible configurations. The air smelled different. Not bad, just other, like breathing air from a different world. My radio crackled. Unit 12, respond. What's your location? I'm at the boundary sign. Found the subject's camera. No sign of the subject yet. Begay, listen carefully. The sun is setting in 7 minutes. You need to return to the vehicle immediately. Do not cross the boundary. Do not proceed into 7C. But she's in there. Her footprints continue past the sign. The specialized team will handle it. Get back to the truck now. That's a direct order. I looked at the footprints in the dust. Small sneakers, women's size 7 or 8. Olivia's, leading past the sign into the Devil's Zone. Then I noticed something that made my decision for me. There was a second set of footprints. Bare feet. Much larger. Following Olivia's prints, or leading them. Hard to tell which set was older. And the bare footprints didn't look quite human. The toes were too long. The spacing was wrong. And they sank deeper into the ground than weight alone should explain. Unit 12, acknowledge. Are you returning to the vehicle? I looked at the darkening sky. 6 minutes to sunset. Negative, I'm going in. Someone's in there with her. Begay, do not. I turned off my radio and crossed the boundary. The change was immediate and disorienting. The temperature dropped at least 10 degrees. The ambient sound disappeared. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just silence so complete it pressed against my eardrums. And the light was wrong. The sunset should have been behind me, casting long shadows ahead. But here, the light seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere, like the landscape was generating its own dim illumination. I followed the footprints. Olivia's sneaker prints and the impossible bare feet. They led through a narrow canyon between two rock formations that shouldn't have been there. I'd studied maps of this area, and these formations didn't exist on any survey. That's when I heard the singing. Not Olivia. This was a man's voice, deep and resonant. Singing in Navajo, but old Navajo, the kind my great-grandfather might have spoken. I could catch maybe 1 word in 10. What I could understand chilled me. The hour of return. Thin, spaces open. What was taken must be given. The debt is old. The canyon opened into a small valley, and in the center of that valley, I saw them. Olivia was standing perfectly still, facing a man, or something that looked like a man. He was tall, at least 7 feet, and rail-thin, wearing what might have been traditional Navajo clothing from 100 years ago, but wrong. The patterns were inverted, the colors were shades that shouldn't exist, and his face, God, his face. It was human and not human. The features were right, but the proportions were off by just enough to trigger every instinct that screamed wrong. His eyes were too large, too dark, like looking into wells that went down forever. He was still singing, and Olivia was swaying slightly like she was being pulled by invisible strings. "Olivia!" I shouted. "Navajo Police! Step away from him." The singing stopped. Both of them turned to look at me. Olivia's expression was blank, her eyes unfocused. The man-thing smiled, showing teeth that were too white and too numerous. "Yate, officer," he said. His voice sounded like it was coming from somewhere behind me and inside my head simultaneously. "You arrive at the hour of thin spaces. How fortunate. We have need of witnesses. I'm taking the girl. She's coming with me." "Is she?" "Look closer, officer. Is she still the girl who entered, or has she become something else during the hour of return?" I looked at Olivia more carefully. Something was wrong with her. Her skin had a gray cast to it. Her movements, even just the swaying, were too fluid, too boneless, like she was being puppeted. "What did you do to her?" "I? Nothing. The Devil's Zone did what the Devil's Zone always does during the hour of thin spaces. It returns what was taken. It restores what was lost. This girl, she walks on land where something precious was stolen. The land remembers. The land reclaims." "I don't understand." "No, your generation never does. You've forgotten the old agreements, the old debts, but the land remembers." He gestured around the valley. "This place, what you call the Devil's Zone, this is where the boundary is thinnest, where what should be separated can touch. Your people knew this once. That's why the old ones marked it, protected it, warned others away after sunset." "After sunset," I repeated. "Why after sunset?" "Because that's when the hour of thin spaces begins. When the membrane between what is and what was becomes permeable. When debts can be paid. When the taken can return." Olivia took a step toward the man-thing. I raised my weapon. "Don't move!" "Olivia, stay where you are." But she wasn't Olivia anymore. Or she was Olivia, but something else was there with her, something old and angry and hungry. When she spoke, it was with two voices. Her own young woman's voice, and underneath it, something ancient and inhuman. "He took my land. He killed my family. He built his ranch on our graves and prospered while we rotted. Now the thin space opens. Now I return. Now I reclaim." "Who are you?" I asked, though I was starting to understand. "I am what remains when everything is stolen. I am the echo of massacre. I am the debt unpaid for 127 years. And this girl, she walks where I once walked. She is of the people who prospered on stolen land. She is the payment." The man-thing nodded approvingly. "You see, officer? The Devil's Zone restores balance. What was taken by violence must be returned by violence. What was stolen must be reclaimed. This is the old law, older than your courts, older than your police, older than the reservation itself." The sun was fully set now, and in the darkness I could see more figures appearing at the edges of the valley. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All dressed in old clothes. All with that same wrong proportions. All with those deep well eyes. "The hour of thin spaces is fully upon us," the man-thing said. "Every sunset for 1 hour we can cross, can touch the world that forgot us, can reclaim what was stolen. This girl is just one payment, but there are many debts, many thefts. Many of your people walk on graves they don't know exist. I'm not letting you take her." You cannot stop the old law, officer. You cannot arrest the past. You cannot handcuff history. He stepped toward me, and I saw that his feet didn't quite touch the ground. The Devil's Zone will have its payment. Tonight, it is this girl. Tomorrow night, perhaps another. Every sunset, the thin space opens. Every sunset, we return. This is the price of living on stolen land. I fired my weapon. The bullet passed through him like he was smoke. He didn't flinch, didn't stop. Just kept walking toward me with that terrible smile. Iron cannot hurt what has already died, officer. Your weapons are useless here. This is not your jurisdiction. This is the Devil's Zone, and in the Devil's Zone, the old laws rule. Olivia, or the thing wearing Olivia, lunged at me. I dodged, but barely. She was fast, impossibly fast. Her hands had become claws, her teeth too sharp. I ran. Behind me, I heard laughter. Not mocking, almost sad. Like they pitied me for not understanding what I couldn't change. I ran back through the canyon, following my own footprints in reverse. The valley behind me filled with sounds, howling, screaming, singing in languages that predated human speech. I burst through the boundary sign and felt reality snap back into place. Normal temperature, normal sound, normal darkness. My radio crackled to life. Unit 12, respond. What's your status? I was bent over, hands on knees, gasping for breath. This is Unit 12. I crossed into 7C. The girl is there. There are things in there. They took her. They said something about debts and payments and... Begay, shut up. Encrypted channel, now. He switched us to the secure frequency. Okay, talk. What did you see? I told him everything. The man thing, the figures at the edges of the valley. Olivia being possessed, or replaced, or claimed. The talk of thin spaces and old debts. Silence. Then, Jesus Christ, Begay. You went in during the hour of thin spaces, without preparation, without authorization. You're lucky you made it out. You knew. You all knew what was in there. Of course we knew. Why do you think it's called Restricted Area 7C? Why do you think we have protocols? The Devil's Zone has been there since before the reservation was established. Before white settlers came. Before the long walk. It's been there forever, and it will be there forever. And every sunset for 1 hour, the boundary thins. The old debts come due. The stolen land tries to reclaim its dead. We have to help Olivia. She's beyond help. If she's still in there after the hour of thin spaces, she's part of the Devil's Zone now. You can't save her. No one can. There has to be something. There isn't. This isn't the first time someone wandered in there at the wrong time. Won't be the last. That's why we have the protocols. That's why we have the specialized team. They know how to retrieve people who cross the boundary before sunset. After sunset, there's nothing we can do except wait for sunrise and hope the land releases them. And if it doesn't, then they become part of the Devil's Zone. Like the others. What others? Nez was quiet for a long moment. How do you think the Devil's Zone got its reputation, Begay? How do you think we learned about the hour of thin spaces? People have been disappearing there for over a century. Sometimes we find them at sunrise. Usually we don't. The ones we do find, they're never the same. They come back wrong. Changed. Like something else came back wearing their face. I thought about Olivia's gray skin, her too fluid movements, the dual voices. The specialized team, I said. They're coming to extract her, right? They're coming to secure the perimeter. Make sure nothing crosses the boundary into our world. That's all we can do. Contain the Devil's Zone. keep people away during the hour of thin spaces. Let the old debts settle themselves. That's not acceptable. She's a civilian. She didn't know. None of them know. That's the problem. The young ones don't believe the old stories anymore. They think the boundary markers are superstition. They think the Devil's Zone is just a name scared elders gave to empty land. So they cross the boundary. And they learn too late that some stories are warnings. Headlights appeared on the access road. 3 vehicles, all black SUVs with no markings. The specialized team. 6 men got out. All Navajo, all wearing tactical gear I'd never seen before. No police insignia, no identification. They moved with the precision of military operators. One of them approached me. Older man, maybe 60, with traditional tattoos on his hands. "You're the officer who crossed the boundary during the hour of thin spaces?" "Yes, Olivia So is still in there. We need to—" "There is no we. You're contaminated. You'll need to be evaluated before you can return to regular duty. Get in the vehicle. I'm not leaving until—" He grabbed my arm. His grip was iron. "Officer Begay, you crossed the boundary during the hour of thin spaces and returned. That makes you valuable. You've seen the other side and survived. But it also makes you dangerous. You've been touched by the Devil's Zone. We need to make sure nothing followed you back." I looked at my hands. Were they grayer than they should be? Were my movements too fluid? God, was I becoming like Olivia? They loaded me into one of the SUVs. Through the window, I watched as they set up equipment around the boundary sign. Lights. Cameras. Something that looked like ground-penetrating radar but hummed at a frequency that made my teeth ache. And I watched the clock. 7:34 p.m. 26 minutes left in the hour of thin spaces. 26 minutes for Olivia to survive whatever was happening to her in there. 26 minutes before sunrise, if she survived that long, when the boundary would thin again, and maybe she'd be released. But I'd seen those figures. Hundreds of them. All dead and not dead. All there because of old debts and stolen land and violence that echoed across generations. And I knew with terrible certainty that Olivia wouldn't be coming back. Not as Olivia, anyway. In the Devil's Zone, the old debts always got paid. The only question was, what currency did the land accept? They took me to a facility that officially doesn't exist. No signs marked the turnoff. No GPS coordinates. Just 20 miles of dirt road into the desert, past Window Rock, into country so remote that cell service disappeared after the first 5 miles. The building looked like an old trading post from the outside. Adobe construction, traditional style, nothing to suggest it was anything other than an abandoned relic from the 1920s. Inside was different. Medical equipment, computer stations, a laboratory setup that looked like something from a federal research facility, and cells, 6 of them built into what would have been the trading post's storage rooms. 3 were occupied. "Don't look at them," the older man, I'd learned his name was Thomas Yazzie, head of what he called the Special Situations Unit, warned me. "Not directly. Not until we confirm you're clean." Clean from what? Possession, contamination, replacement. The Devil's Zone has many ways of following people home. We need to make sure you're still you. They put me in an examination room, drew blood, took hair samples, shined lights in my eyes that hurt in ways normal lights shouldn't. Asked me questions in Navajo, not modern Navajo, but the old dialect my grandmother spoke, testing to see if something ancient was hiding behind my voice. While they worked, I asked about Olivia, the girl who was taken. What happens to her now? Dr. May Tsosi, a woman in her 50s wearing a white coat over traditional turquoise jewelry, didn't look up from her blood analysis. That depends on what the Devil's Zone wants from her. Sometimes it's a quick death. Sometimes it's slow. Sometimes they come back at sunrise, but wrong, changed, with something else riding them. You've seen it before. I've been with the Special Situations Unit for 20 years. I've seen it hundreds of times. She loaded my blood into a centrifuge. The Devil's Zone has been claiming people since before my grandparents' walked this land. Before the Long Walk. Before Kit Carson. Before Spanish conquistadors. The thin space has always been there, always will be. What is it? Really? She finally looked at me. You want the scientific explanation or the traditional one? Both. Scientifically, it's an area of severe magnetic and gravitational anomalies. Something about the geology creates fields that affect human perception and consciousness. People experience hallucinations, time distortion. Some theories suggest it's a natural portal to another dimension or parallel reality. And traditionally, it's the place where the dead refuse to die, where violence soaks so deep into the land that it becomes permanent. Every massacre, every atrocity, every stolen life, they don't disappear. They accumulate, become part of the landscape. And during the hour of thin spaces, when the sun sets and the veil weakens, they can reach through, can touch our world, can reclaim what was taken. Yazzie said something about old debts. Everything is debt to the land. You build on graves, the dead want payment. You profit from theft, the stolen want compensation. You flourish while others were destroyed. The destroyed want balance. The Devil's Zone is where those accounts come due. The centrifuge beeped. She examined the results, frowning. What is it? Your blood. There's something in it, not biological. More like an echo, a resonance. You were touched by the thin space, marked by it. What does that mean? It means you'll always be sensitive to it now. You'll feel when the hour of thin spaces is approaching. You'll hear things others don't hear, see things others don't see. She paused. And it means the Devil's Zone will always know where you are. Will always be able to call you back. My stomach dropped. I'm contaminated. Not contaminated. Marked, there's a difference. Contamination means something foreign inside you, trying to take over. Marked means you've been registered, acknowledged. The Devil's Zone knows you now, considers you part of its territory. Can you remove it? We've tried, with others, doesn't work. Once the Devil's Zone marks you, you're marked for life. Best we can do is teach you how to resist the call, how to recognize when the thin space is reaching for you, how to protect yourself during the hour of thin spaces. Yazzie entered with a folder. Blood work is clean, no possession markers, no replacement indicators. He's still him. He sat down across from me. But Dr. Tsosi is right. You're marked now. The Devil's Zone touched you and let you go. That almost never happens. Why did it let me go? That's what we need to figure out. Everyone who crosses during the hour of thin spaces either dies, gets taken, or comes back changed. You came back as yourself. Marked, yes, but still you. That suggests the Devil's Zone wants something from you. Something specific. Like what? Could be many things. Could be it wants you as a witness. Someone to tell others what happens in there. To maintain the fear that keeps people away. Could be it wants you as a lure. Use your presence to draw others in. Could be... He hesitated. Could be it wants you to understand. To learn the old ways. To help maintain the balance. What balance? Between the living and the dead. between what was and what is. The Devil's Zone isn't evil, Officer Begay. It's justice. Terrible justice, yes, but justice nonetheless. Every person it claims, every life it takes, there's a reason, a debt that needed settling. Your ancestors understood this. That's why they marked the boundaries, why they warned people away after sunset, why they taught respect for the thin places. You're saying Olivia deserved what happened to her? I'm saying the land doesn't recognize individual guilt or innocence. It recognizes patterns, histories. If Olivia's family benefited from land stolen from the dead, if they prospered on graves, then the land sees her as payment. Fair or not, that's how the old accounts work. I thought about what the man thing had said, about debts and payments and violence echoing across generations. How many people has the Devil's Zone claimed? Yazzie opened his folder. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Different people, different eras. Some photos were recent digital prints. Some were faded Polaroids from the 70s and 80s. Some were black and white photographs from even earlier. These are the confirmed disappearances since we started keeping records in 1952. 347 people. That's just the ones we know about, the ones with documentation. Before 1952, the numbers are estimates based on tribal oral histories. Could be thousands more. Jesus Christ. And those are just the permanent disappearances. People who never came back. Another 217 came back wrong, changed, with something else wearing them. He pulled out more photos. We keep them here. In the cells, study them, try to understand what happens during the hour of thin spaces. The occupied cells I saw? 3 current residents, all of them crossed into the Devil's Zone during the hour of thin spaces. All came back, but not alone. What's inside them? Debts, echoes. The dead riding the living. Sometimes they're coherent. Can talk, can explain what they want. Usually they're just rage and hunger. The accumulated pain of violence trying to express itself through a human form. Dr. Tassosi pulled up footage on a computer. Security camera from one of the cells. A woman in her 30s sitting on a cot. At first glance, she looked normal. Then I saw her movements. Too fluid, too boneless, just like Olivia. This is Rebecca Largo. Crossed the boundary 2 months ago during the hour of thin spaces. Came back the next morning. Seemed fine initially. Then the changes started. Her voice deepened. Her mannerisms changed. She started speaking in Old Navajo, talking about debts and stolen land and massacres that happened in 1873. As I watched, Rebecca's head turned toward the camera. Her eyes were completely black. No whites, no iris. Just solid black that seemed to absorb light. She smiled, and in that smile, I saw the same terrible recognition I'd seen in the man thing in the Devil's Zone. She knows we're watching, Dr. Tassosi said. Whatever's inside her, it's aware. Intelligent, patient, it's waiting for something. Waiting for what? For the hour of thin spaces, every sunset, they become more active, more vocal. They know when the boundary weakens, know when they might be able to cross back to the Devil's Zone, or when more of their kind might cross into our world. Yazzie closed the folder. This is why we have the Special Situations Unit. Why we patrol the Devil's Zone boundaries. Why we try to keep people away during the hour of thin spaces. Not because we're hiding something, because we're trying to prevent more contaminations, more possessions, more debts being paid in human currency. What about Olivia? Can we save her? We'll know at sunrise. If she's still in the Devil's Zone when the sun rises, the boundary will thin again briefly. Sometimes the land releases people then. Sometimes. He stood up. There's a team staged at the boundary. If she emerges, they'll secure her, bring her here for evaluation. If she's clean, she goes home. If she's contaminated, she becomes a permanent resident. Yes. I looked at the security footage of Rebecca, at her black eyes and too fluid movements, at the thing wearing her face, waiting patiently for the hour of thin spaces to return. That couldn't be Olivia's future. It couldn't. Let me go back, I said. During the hour of thin spaces, let me try to bring her out. Absolutely not. You'd just be giving the Devil's Zone another victim, another debt paid. But I'm marked. You said the Devil's Zone let me go for a reason. Maybe that reason is to bring others out, to help maintain the balance. Yazzie considered this. The marked have certain immunities. You might be able to navigate the Devil's Zone during the hour of thin spaces without being claimed. Might be able to bargain with whatever's in there. But it's never been tested. No marked person has ever voluntarily gone back during the hour. Then I'll be the first. You understand what you're offering? If you go in and don't come back, you either die or become like them. Possessed. Changed. Part of the Devil's Zone forever. I thought about Olivia's mother. About her desperate phone call. About how she'd said the sun is going down like it was a death sentence. I understand. Dr. Tsosi turned from the computer. If you're serious about this, we'll need to prepare you. Teach you protection rituals. Give you tools that might help. The marked have advantages, but you're not immune. The Devil's Zone can still claim you if you're not careful. Over the next 5 hours, they trained me. Traditional songs to sing that created protective barriers. Turquoise to carry. The sacred stone that the old ones used against dark forces. Corn pollen to sprinkle at thresholds. And words, old words in deep Navajo that commanded respect from the dead. The dead understand hierarchy, Yazzie explained. If you speak with proper authority, if you know the old protocols, they have to listen. Not obey, necessarily, but listen. That might buy you enough time to negotiate. Negotiate what? Olivia's release. Offer something else in exchange. The Devil's Zone wants balance. If you can provide balance without Olivia having to pay the debt, it might accept the trade. What could I offer? Knowledge, service, future payments. The Devil's Zone is patient. It's been collecting debts for thousands of years. It can wait for payment. If you promise to maintain the boundaries, to help keep people safe, to ensure proper respect is paid to the thin places, it might accept that as equivalent to one life. At 6:30 p.m., they drove me back to Coyote Wash, the boundary to the Devil's Zone. The team was already there. Same black SUVs, same tactical equipment. But this time they were setting up for an extraction, not a containment. Yazzie handed me a radio. This won't work inside during the hour of thin spaces, but use it before you cross and after you return. If you return, when I return. He almost smiled. When you return. Remember, speak with authority. Show no fear. The dead feed on fear. And whatever you do, don't accept food or drink if it's offered. That's a traditional trap. Accepting hospitality from the dead binds you to their realm. The sun was setting. 15 minutes until the hour of thin spaces. I walked to the boundary sign. Behind me, the team readied their equipment. In front of me, the landscape was already changing. The rocks darkening. The vegetation shifting. The air taking on that other quality. My radio crackled. Unit 12, you're clear to proceed. May the holy people protect you. I crossed the boundary. The change hit me like diving into cold water. temperature drop, sound disappearing, that sense of wrong light from wrong directions. But this time, I knew what to expect. This time, I was prepared. I sang the protection song they'd taught me. Old words, old melody. Words that predated the reservation, predated European contact, predated even the Puebloan cultures. Words from when my people first came to this land and learned which places demanded respect. The canyon opened before me, the same narrow path between impossible rock formations. But this time, I could see more. The landscape wasn't just dark, it was layered. Multiple versions of the same space occupying the same position. Different eras, different configurations, all visible at once. I saw the land as it had been before settlers, before the long walk, before humans walked here at all. And I saw the violence. Layers of violence soaking into the earth. Massacres, betrayals, broken treaties, stolen land, murdered families. The accumulation of centuries of pain pressed into one geological formation. This was what the Devil's Zone really was, not a supernatural phenomenon, not a portal to another dimension. Just a place where so much suffering had occurred that the land itself remembered. Held the memories. Replayed them during the hour of thin spaces when the veil between past and present became permeable. The valley opened before me, and there, in the center, I saw her. Olivia, surrounded by hundreds of the dead, all of them touching her, all of them trying to push through her, use her as a bridge between their world and ours. She was screaming. Had been screaming this whole time, but the sound had been swallowed by the thin space. Now I could hear it, raw, terrified, still human, still salvageable. I walked forward. The dead turned to watch me. I saw faces from different eras, Navajo, Apache, Pueblo, Spanish conquistadors with rust-red crosses on their chests, American soldiers from different wars, settlers, miners, traders, all of them victims of the violence that had occurred here, all of them waiting for the debts to be paid. The man-thing I'd seen before stepped forward. "You return." The marked one, the witness who escaped. "Why?" "I've come for the girl." "Olivia, so I'm offering a trade." "What does the living have that the dead would accept?" "Service. I'll maintain the boundaries. I'll keep people away during the hour of thin spaces. I'll ensure proper respect is paid to the Devil's Zone. I'll become the guardian of the thin space." The man-thing tilted his head. Around us, the dead murmured, discussing, debating. "The girl's debt is old," he said. "Her family prospered on land stolen from the people. Built wealth on graves, 3 generations have profited from land that should have been returned. That debt must be paid. Then let it be paid over time. Take my service instead of her life. I'll ensure future debts are prevented. Future theft is stopped. Isn't that worth more than one death?" The murmuring grew louder. Then a new voice spoke. Old, female, powerful. A woman emerged from the crowd of dead. She wore traditional dress from the 1800s. Her face was weathered, her eyes ancient. "You speak of balance," she said, "of future prevention. But the girl walks on my bones. Her family's ranch is built where my family was massacred. My children's graves are beneath her family's cattle. How do you balance that?" I pulled out the turquoise stone they'd given me, held it up. I acknowledge the debt. I acknowledge the theft. I acknowledge the pain. And I offer myself as guarantor. If the girl's family doesn't make amends, doesn't return what was stolen, doesn't honor what was taken, then when my time comes, the Devil's Zone can claim me, my life for hers, my death to balance the books. Silence. The old woman approached me, looked at the turquoise, looked into my eyes. You would trade your future for her present? Yes. Why? Because the debts of the past shouldn't be paid by those who didn't create them. Because Olivia doesn't know what her family did. Because justice should be about restoration, not revenge. The old woman smiled. It was sad and tired and infinitely weary. You speak well, like the old ones who understood balance. Very well. We accept your service, your guarantee. The girl is released. But remember, debts don't disappear. They transfer. When your time comes, the Devil's Zone will collect, and the payment will be absolute. She touched my forehead. Where she touched, it burned like ice and fire together. You are bound now. Guardian of the thin space. Keeper of the balance. The Devil's Zone will call you when the hour approaches. You will hear the dead. You will feel the debts accumulating. And you will ensure no more pass through unprepared. The dead stepped back from Olivia. She collapsed, gasping. I ran to her. Olivia! Can you hear me? Her eyes focused on me, really focused. She was still Olivia. Still human. Still clean. Officer? What? Where am I? I'm getting you out. Come on. I helped her up. We started walking toward the canyon. Behind us, the dead watched silently. At the canyon entrance, I looked back. The old woman raised her hand in farewell, or warning. Hard to tell the difference. Remember, she called. The hour of thin spaces never ends for the marked. You belong to both worlds now, living and dead, present and past. This is the price of guardianship. We crossed the boundary just as the hour of thin spaces ended. The change back to normal reality was jarring. Warm air, sound, life. The team rushed forward with medical equipment. They took Olivia, started evaluating her. Yazzie approached me. You did it. You actually did it. She's clean? Preliminary scans show no contamination. You got her out before the possession could take hold. But the price? The price is you're bound now, permanently. The Devil's Zone owns part of you. When you die, however you die, you'll become part of the thin space. Part of the balance you promised to maintain. I touched my forehead where the old woman had burned her mark into me. At least Olivia goes home. Yes, she goes home, with no memory of what happened if we do our job right. She'll think she got lost, hallucinated, was found by search and rescue. Normal explanation for an abnormal event. And you become what we needed. A marked guardian who understands both worlds, who can negotiate with the dead during the hour of thin spaces, who can help us prevent future debts from accumulating. He handed me a new badge. Same design as my regular police ID, but with an additional symbol. An old Navajo protection sign. Welcome to the Special Situations Unit, Officer Begay. Your real education starts now. 6 months have passed since I became marked. 6 months since I traded my future for Olivia So's present. 6 months since I became guardian of the Devil's Zone. The work is nothing like regular police duty. Every day at 5:30 p.m., I feel it. A pulling sensation behind my ribs. A whisper in the back of my mind. The Devil's Zone calling me. Reminding me that the hour of thin spaces is approaching. Reminding me of the debt I owe. I've learned to recognize the signs now. The way the air tastes different an hour before sunset. The way shadows fall wrong. The way certain areas of the reservation feel heavier, denser, like reality is compressing. These are the thin places, and there are more of them than I ever imagined. The Devil's Zone isn't unique. It's just the strongest, the oldest, the place where the most violence accumulated. But there are dozens of other thin places scattered across the reservation. Smaller, weaker, but still dangerous during the hour of thin spaces. My job is to patrol them, to keep people away, to negotiate with the dead when negotiations are possible, and to accept payment when negotiations fail. I've seen things in these 6 months that I still can't fully process. I've watched a woman walk out of a thin place near Chinle, speaking in the voice of her great-great-grandmother, recounting a massacre from 1864 in perfect detail. Details she couldn't have known. Details that matched historical records hidden in archives she'd never accessed. I've negotiated with the dead at a thin place near Ganado. 3 children, killed during a smallpox outbreak in 1892, trapped in the moment of their death, replaying it every night during the hour of thin spaces. I convinced them to rest by ensuring their unmarked grave was properly acknowledged. The tribe put up a memorial. The children stopped appearing. I've failed negotiations, too. A man named Robert Benally crossed into a thin place near Tuba City during the hour. Refused to listen to warnings, said the old stories were superstition. He came back 3 days later, changed, something ancient wearing his face. We have him in a cell now. Cell number 4. He doesn't speak anymore, just watches, waits, planning something. And through it all, I feel the devil's zone watching, measuring, keeping accounts. The old woman, I've learned her name was Olivia Begay, killed with her family in 1897 when settlers wanted their land. She appears sometimes during my patrols. Not threatening, just observing, making sure I'm honoring the bargain. You're doing well, she told me last week. Maintaining the balance, preventing unnecessary deaths. The thin places are quieter now, the dead less restless. How long do I have to do this, I asked. Until you die. That was the bargain. You serve as guardian during life. Join us as part of the thin space after death. This is the price of saving the girl. Do you regret it? Being trapped here, unable to move on. She was quiet for a moment. Regret implies I had a choice. We didn't choose to be massacred, didn't choose to have our land stolen, didn't choose to become echoes trapped in geology. We're here because violence put us here, because theft and murder soaked so deep into the land that we became inseparable from it. Is there any way to free you? To let you rest? Perhaps, if the debts were fully paid, if proper acknowledgment was made, if the land was returned and the dead honored. But who would do such a thing? Who would surrender wealth and prosperity to balance accounts with people who died generations ago? She had a point. Olivia So's family still owned the ranch built on massacre grounds, still profited from stolen land. Olivia herself didn't know, didn't remember her time in the Devil's Zone. Dr. Tsosi had erased those memories, left her with a story about getting lost and being rescued. I tried to talk to Olivia's mother about the land, about its history, about what had happened there. She'd smiled politely and changed the subject. The past is past, she'd said. We can't change what our ancestors did. But the dead disagreed. For them, the past was present. The violence was ongoing, the debt still unpaid. That's the real horror of the Devil's Zone and all the thin places. Not that the dead can touch the living during the hour of thin spaces, but that history never dies. That violence echoes forever. That no one ever really gets away with theft and murder. The land remembers, and eventually the land collects. 2 months ago, I got my first real test as guardian. A developer from Phoenix wanted to build a resort on tribal land near the Devil's Zone. Luxury accommodations for tourists wanting an authentic Navajo experience. The location he'd chosen was directly on top of a thin place where 37 people had died during a cavalry raid in 1879. I appeared at the tribal council meeting where they were discussing the proposal. "That land is restricted," I said. "It's a thin place. Building there would be disastrous." The developer laughed. "Thin place? Officer, with all respect to your traditions, we're talking about economic development. Jobs, revenue for the tribe. We're talking about building on graves, about disturbing the dead, about creating a location where hundreds of tourists would be present during the hour of thin spaces. Do you understand what would happen? Nothing would happen. Because there's nothing there but empty land and superstition." The council was divided. Half wanted the development and the money it would bring. Half respected the old warnings about thin places. They delayed the decision, asked for more information. That night, I took the developer to the thin place, just before sunset. Showed him the boundary markers, the turquoise stones placed by elders, the warnings carved into rock in Old Navajo. "These have been here for over a century," I said, "warning people away, marking the dangerous ground. You want to build on top of this. Old stones and old fears. The world has moved on, officer." Has it? Watch the sunset. The hour of thin spaces began, the dead emerged. 37 figures, men, women, children, all bearing the wounds that had killed them. Gunshots, blade wounds, trampled. They manifested in the exact spots where they'd died, and they screamed, relived their final moments, played out the massacre in perfect detail. The developer went pale. "What? What is this?" "This is what happens every night during the hour of thin spaces. For 1 hour, the dead return, replay their deaths, seek payment for the violence done to them. Now imagine a resort here. Imagine tourists witnessing this. Imagine them being touched by the dead, possessed, changed. Imagine explaining to the Phoenix police why your guests are coming back wrong." We watched the full hour. The developer didn't speak, just watched the dead replay their massacre 37 times. When the hour ended and the dead faded, he turned to me. "The project is canceled. I'll tell the council tomorrow. This land belongs to them, the dead. We have no right to disturb it." The tribal council accepted his withdrawal. The thin place remained undisturbed, and that night, when I patrolled the boundary, the dead were quieter, less agitated, like they appreciated being acknowledged, being protected. Olivia Begay appeared. "You prevented a great harm. If that resort had been built, dozens would have died. Hundreds would have been touched by the thin space. You're learning what it means to be guardian. I'm doing what I promised, maintaining the balance. More than that, you're helping others understand why the balance matters, why the old warnings exist, why some places demand respect." She paused. "But the greatest test is still to come." "What test?" "The debt you guaranteed. Olivia Tso's family, they've made no amends, no acknowledgement, no return of stolen land. The debt still stands. And debts, when unpaid, accumulate interest." My stomach dropped. "You're going to claim Olivia again." "Not her, but someone from her family. The debt must be paid, if not by her, then by another. That's how the old law works. The family benefited together. The family pays together. Give me time. Let me talk to them. Let me explain. We've given time. 6 months. The girl remembers nothing. The family continues to profit from stolen land. Time is what created this debt in the first place. More time won't resolve it. Then what will? Acknowledgement, apology, return of what was taken, or ... She looked at me carefully. or the guaranteed payment. Me, you offered yourself as surety. If the family doesn't pay, you pay in their place. You die in debt to the Devil's Zone. Join us in the thin space. Become one of the dead seeking balance. I'm not ready to die. None of us were. Death rarely waits for readiness. She faded, leaving me alone in the darkness with the weight of my promise pressing down like a physical thing. I had guaranteed Olivia's debt. If her family didn't pay, I would pay. With my life, with my eternal service as one of the dead trapped in the Devil's Zone. The next morning, I drove to the So Ranch. Olivia's mother answered the door. "Officer Begay, is something wrong?" "Mrs. So, I need to talk to you about your land, about its history, about what happened here." She tensed. "We've been over this. The past is demanding payment. Your family has prospered on land stolen from the dead. That debt is coming due. If you don't acknowledge it, if you don't make amends, someone in your family will pay the price. Are you threatening us? I'm warning you. The land remembers. The dead remember. During the hour of thin spaces, they can touch our world. They can claim payment. Olivia got lucky. She was rescued. But the debt wasn't forgiven, just deferred. And now it's time to pay. This is ridiculous. You're telling me ghosts are going to collect on some imaginary debt? Not imaginary. Real. Your great-great-grandfather participated in the massacre that cleared this land, killed the Begay family so settlers could claim it, built this ranch on their graves, prospered while they rotted in unmarked graves. That's not imaginary, that's documented history. She was quiet. Then, even if that's true, it wasn't my fault. I didn't kill anyone, I just inherited land, and profited from it, and refused to acknowledge where it came from. That's the debt. Not the original violence, that's paid, but the continued benefit without acknowledgement. That's what the dead want, recognition, apology, some form of restoration. What kind of restoration? Return the land, or dedicate part of it as a memorial, or donate profits to the descendants of those who were killed. Something, anything that shows you understand this land isn't freely given, that it carries a debt. Mrs. So crossed her arms. "No, this is my family's land, legally purchased, legally owned. I'm not giving it up because of some superstitious nonsense about debts to dead people." "Then someone in your family will die during the hour of thin spaces, and they'll come back wrong, possessed by the dead, changed into something that seeks balance through violence. Is that really worth it? Is this ranch worth your family's lives? Get off my property, officer." Before I call your supervisor, I left. There was nothing more I could say. She'd made her choice. The family would pay the old debt in blood, unless I paid it first. That night, I returned to the Devil's Zone, crossed the boundary during the hour of thin spaces, found Olivia Begay waiting. She refused, I said. "We know." We were listening. The thin places hear everything said about them. So, what happens now? Now the debt comes due. Someone from the Tso family will be claimed during the next hour of thin spaces. Unless you choose to pay the debt yourself, to fulfill your guarantee. I thought about Olivia, about how terrified she'd been, surrounded by the dead, being slowly possessed. About how Mrs. Tso had no idea what she was condemning her family to by refusing to acknowledge the debt. And I thought about the bargain I'd made. My life for Olivia's, my death to balance the books. "If I pay the debt," I said slowly, "if I give myself to the Devil's Zone now, will that settle the account? Will the Tso family be free? For this generation, yes. Their debt to the Begay family will be paid. But understand this is permanent. You die. Your spirit joins the thin space. You become one of us, one of the dead seeking balance, trapped in the devil's zone forever. But they'll be safe until they create new debts. But this particular debt, yes, paid in full. I looked around the valley at the hundreds of dead watching me, waiting to see what choice I'd make. There has to be another way. Some way to resolve this without death, without perpetuating the cycle. An old man stepped forward. I'd seen him before. One of the dead who'd been present when I rescued Olivia. He wore cavalry uniform from the 1890s. You seek to break the cycle, he said. But you don't understand the cycle. We're not here because we died. We're here because we died violently, unjustly, without acknowledgment. Give us acknowledgment and we can rest. Give us justice, and the cycle ends. How? How do I give you justice? Make them see. Make them understand. Make them acknowledge that this land is built on blood and theft. Not to punish them, but to remind them, to ensure it doesn't happen again. An idea formed. Crazy. Impossible. But maybe. What if I brought them here? During the hour of thin spaces. Let them see you. Let them understand what their refusal costs. Olivia Begay shook her head. That's dangerous. They could be claimed, possessed. The hour of thin spaces doesn't distinguish between willing and unwilling witnesses. But if I'm there, if I'm guaranteeing their safety, if I promise they're just witnessing, not paying. The dead murmured, discussing, debating. Finally, Olivia Begay spoke. We will allow it. One time. Bring the Tso family during the hour of thin spaces. Let them witness. Let them understand. If they acknowledge the debt after seeing us, we'll consider it partial payment. The debt won't be erased, but it will be reduced, manageable through service rather than death. And if they still refuse, then the debt stands, and you pay it with your life. That was the bargain. I spent the next day preparing, convinced Yazzie to support the plan, got authorization from the tribal council. They wanted this resolved before more violence occurred. Arranged for the Special Situations Unit to provide security during the witness event. That evening, I picked up the Tso family. Mrs. Tso, her husband, Olivia, and Olivia's younger brother. They came reluctantly, skeptically. This is ridiculous, Mr. Tso said. Wasting our time with ghost stories. You'll understand soon enough. We arrived at the Devil's Zone boundary 10 minutes before sunset. The team was already positioned, equipment ready, medical personnel standing by. What's all this for? Olivia asked. She didn't remember the last time she'd been here. Didn't remember the dead trying to possess her. Protection, in case things go wrong. The sun set. The hour of thin spaces began. The dead emerged, dozens at first, then hundreds. All the massacred dead from 1897. All bearing their wounds. All watching the Tso family with ancient, patient eyes. Mrs. Tso gasped. Mr. Tso went pale. Olivia's brother started crying. Olivia just stared. Like somewhere deep in her erased memories, she recognized this place. These figures, this impossible reality. Olivia Begay stepped forward. Looked at Mrs. Tso directly. You asked who we are. Why we claim debt from your family. I am Olivia Begay. In 1897, your great-great-grandfather participated in the massacre that killed me, my husband, and our 5 children. We were buried in unmarked graves. Our land was stolen. Your family built prosperity on our bones. For 127 years, You have profited while we rotted. For 127 years we have waited for acknowledgement, for justice, for balance. She gestured at the other dead. These are the others, the neighboring families, the friends who tried to help us, the tribal members who protested the land theft. All killed, all forgotten, all trapped here because violence soaked so deep into the ground that we became inseparable from it. Mrs. Tso was shaking. I didn't know. I didn't understand. You knew. You chose not to understand, chose to believe the past was past. But for us, the past is present. The violence is ongoing. And until it's acknowledged, until balance is restored, we cannot rest. What do you want from us? Acknowledgement, public acknowledgement, a memorial for the dead, return of some land to tribal ownership, not punishment, not revenge, just recognition that this prosperity was built on theft, that it carries responsibility. Mr. Tso found his voice. If we do this, if we acknowledge and make amends, will you leave us alone? Will the debt be paid? The debt will never be fully paid, but it will be reduced, manageable. Your children won't have to fear the hour of thin spaces. Your family won't be targeted for possession. You can live on this land, but with the knowledge of what it cost, with the responsibility to ensure such theft never happens again. Olivia, the younger Olivia, stepped forward. I remember you, she whispered. I was here before. You tried to take me. We tried to collect a debt your family owes, but you were saved. By him. Olivia Begay gestured at me. He guaranteed your debt, offered his life if your family didn't pay. Now we offer a choice. Public acknowledgement and amends, or his death. Choose. Mrs. Tso looked at me. You did that. Guaranteed our debt with your life? Someone had to break the cycle. Someone had to show that not all debts have to be paid in blood. She turned back to Olivia Begay. What exactly do you want? Specifically, a memorial on this land, listing the names of all who died in the massacre, a dedication ceremony acknowledging what happened, and 10 acres returned to tribal ownership for a cultural preservation site. That's our price for reducing the debt. Mr. Tso and Mrs. Tso looked at each other. A silent conversation between spouses who'd shared decades together. Finally, Mrs. Tso spoke. We agree. We'll build the memorial. We'll acknowledge what happened. We'll return the land. Not because we're afraid, but because it's right. Because we should have done this years ago. Because the past deserves recognition even when it's painful. The dead were silent. Then, slowly, they began to fade. Not disappearing completely, but becoming less solid, less present, like a weight had been lifted. Olivia Begay looked at me. You did well, Guardian. You found a path between death and denial, between revenge and dismissal. This is what balance truly means, not equal suffering, but equal recognition. Will you rest now? Will you be free? Will you be... We will rest easier. But free? Number. We're bound to this place by violence. Bound until every debt is acknowledged, every theft recognized, every crime remembered. But we will rest easier knowing one family understands. One debt is being paid properly. She touched my forehead again, where she'd marked me. This time, the burning was less intense, more like acceptance than imprisonment. Your debt is reduced. You're still bound to the Devil's Zone. Still guardian of the thin space. But you've earned time. When your natural death comes, you'll join us. But it need not be today. It need not be soon. You've proven yourself worthy of the title Guardian. Continue your work. Maintain the balance. help others understand why the old warnings exist. She faded completely. The hour of thin spaces ended. We were left in normal darkness with normal stars and normal air. The Tso family was quiet on the drive back, processing what they'd seen, what they'd experienced, what they'd agreed to. Finally, young Olivia spoke. "Officer Begay, thank you for saving me, for guaranteeing the debt, for giving us a chance to do the right thing. Just doing my job. No, you did more than that. You broke a cycle that's been going for over a century. You showed us that acknowledging the past doesn't destroy the present. It just makes it more honest." 3 months later, the memorial was dedicated. A beautiful site with the names of all who died in the massacre carved into red stone. Olivia Begay's name. Her children's names. All the others. Acknowledged, remembered, honored. The tribal council held a ceremony. Blessed the land. Accepted the 10 acres back into tribal ownership. Thanked the Tso family for their courage in facing uncomfortable truths. That night I patrolled the Devil's Zone. The dead were still there, still trapped by the violence that had created them. But they were quieter, calmer, like a small part of their pain had been acknowledged. Olivia Begay appeared one last time. You've done what few could. Brought justice without violence. Acknowledgement without death. The Devil's Zone will remember. When your time comes, you'll be honored here. Not as a victim, but as a guardian who understood both worlds. How many more thin places are there? How many more debts need settling? Hundreds. Thousands. Every act of violence, every theft, every broken treaty creates thin places. You could spend 1,000 lifetimes trying to balance them all. Then I'd better get started. She smiled. The best guardians are the ones who understand the work is never finished. Who do it anyway. Who maintain the balance not because it's achievable, but because it's necessary. She faded, and I was alone in the Devil's Zone, with the weight of my duty pressing down like a physical thing. But it was a weight I could carry, because I understood now what it meant to be marked, what it meant to be guardian, what it meant to stand between the living and the dead and negotiate balance. This is my warning to anyone who works on tribal lands, who visits reservations, who thinks the past is just history. The land remembers. The dead remember. And during the hour of thin spaces, that 60 minutes after sunset when the veil between worlds weakens, they can reach through, can touch the living, can demand payment for debts that were never settled. I'm Officer David Begay of the Navajo Nation Police Department, Special Situations Unit. I'm the guardian of the Devil's Zone and all the other thin places scattered across the reservation. I've been marked, bound, guaranteed to join the dead when my time comes. But until then, I maintain the balance. I keep people safe. I negotiate with the dead. I help the living understand why some places demand respect. The Devil's Zone will always be there. The thin places will always exist. The dead will always seek balance. My job is to ensure that balance is achieved with acknowledgement rather than violence, with recognition rather than revenge, with understanding rather than fear. Because the alternative, letting the old debts accumulate, letting the violence compound, letting the dead grow more desperate, that leads to more massacres, more possessions, more people like Rebecca Largo sitting in cells, waiting for the hour of thin spaces to return so they can cross back to the land of the dead. So, if you're ever on the Navajo Nation Reservation, if you see boundary markers made of turquoise, if you see signs warning you away from certain areas, if you feel that pulling sensation behind your ribs as sunset approaches, listen to the warnings. Respect the thin places, honor the dead. Because the Devil's Zone is always watching, always measuring, always keeping accounts, and debts, when unpaid, never disappear. They just accumulate interest until someone, somewhere, pays the price.